Thanks for joining us for today's information session on the Unmanned Aircraft System, or UAS, Integration Pilot Program. The UAS Integration Pilot Program was recently announced by the Department of Transportation, or DOT, and the Federal Aviation Administration in response to a presidential memorandum from the White House, which can be found at www.whitehouse.gov. In the memo, the President directs DOT and the FAA to develop a program to first enable immediate testing of innovative UAS or drone concepts, and second, evaluate the involvement of state, local, and tribal governments in managing UAS operations in their communities. These activities will inform future regulations for more complex UAS operations, such as for use in agriculture, commerce, emergency management, human transportation, and other sectors. The program is designed to achieve the goals laid out in the President's memo by enabling effective collaboration between the private sector and state, local, and tribal governments to test and validate cutting-edge drone applications. This supports both the development of a vibrant UAS industry and American leadership in unmanned aviation and automated technologies. Information gathered from the program will improve communication with state, local, and tribal governments and accelerate the approval of UAS operations that currently require special permissions. Today we'll focus on what the program is, how it works, and how you can get involved. The program has a few primary goals. First, we need to get beyond visual line of sight operations. While this program isn't limited to just these operations, achieving BVLOS, or beyond visual line of sight, operations is one of the biggest challenges we face on the path to full integration. Other kinds of operations and advanced technologies will push the boundaries of our current operating environment. So this program also seeks proposals that consider other complex operations, such as routine night operations, operations over people, and operational coordination with manned aircraft. These types of advancements can put UAS to work in a variety of different industries, like cargo delivery and ultimately human transport. That's how we promote innovation, by exploring new technologies. Ultimately, the FAA is striving to broaden national UAS policy to enable full integration. However, the industry will need to help resolve technical barriers to get there. Since a lot of UAS operations currently require special permissions, our goal is to develop enabling regulations that reduce the need for operations by exception. This program will provide the data we need to get there. We also need to consider and address security concerns expressed by our partners who have a public safety mission. By working together, the proposals selected will help guide ways for local and national entities to balance their interests, because safety and security go hand in hand. Law enforcement and public safety entities want to operate UAS for their own purposes, and they want to better understand how UAS operations are flown so they know when someone isn't following the rules. Finally, the FAA recognizes that there may be competing interests between national and local governments regarding roles and responsibilities for safety and security. Although the FAA retains full authority over the national airspace, this program provides an opportunity for state, local, and tribal governments to participate in the management of UAS operations within their communities. Let's look at the program highlights. As we've already discussed, this program seeks to create partnership framework between state, local, and tribal governments on the one hand, and the private sector on the other. These partnerships are meant to be a coordinated effort to provide certainty and stability to UAS owners and operators, to maximize the public benefit of UAS technologies, and to mitigate public safety and security risk. Input from public entities is necessary to appropriately balance public interest and technology development. Working closely and with the support of the private sector, these government entities are encouraged to develop and test new and innovative UAS operations and applications within their jurisdictions. So what does a partnership look like? Several examples are available in the program documents, but let's consider one in particular. A certain state and several of its municipalities with a strong agricultural economy may want to explore how to use drones to reduce farming costs. So, the state and/or the municipalities can partner with a private sector entity to test how to fly UAS to check crops for insects or disease, count spring calves, or check for fencing damage. In addition to the operational opportunities for UAS, there are additional opportunities for cost reduction, job creation, and other efficiencies that would be identified and measured through this program. So how can you get involved in the program? The application process requires applicants to provide specific information in a predetermined order, and the entire process must be completed within 57 days after the Federal Register notice is published. This webinar covers how to access the application portal, which is where applicants must submit all materials for consideration. In general, successful proposals will push the boundaries from where we are today. Proposals designed to develop and test innovative concepts and address aggressive integration objectives, and especially proposals that can be applied to a diverse set of operators in many different environments. In other words, proposals should address more than just how a single jurisdiction or company will achieve their specific political or business goals. The best proposals will move the entire industry forward. So how do you get started, and where can you learn more about the application process? The first thing you need to do is read the Screening Information Request, or the SIR. This document provides detailed instructions about the application process, from what kind of information you need to provide, when you need to provide it, and in what format. A copy of the Screening Information Request can be found at www.faaco.faa.gov. You'll also be familiar with the Federal Register Notice, or FRN. This is the official public announcement about the UAS Integration Pilot Program, and the application timeline is based on the day that it is published. The next thing to determine is the lead applicant for your proposal. Lead applicants must be either a state, local, or tribal government and will serve as the primary point of contact with the FAA from start to finish. If you're a state, local, or tribal government and you wish to submit a proposal for the program, you must identify a lead applicant and submit a notice of intent to the FAA within 20 days after the Federal Register Notice is published. Alternatively, if you are a private sector entity or a state, local, or tribal government that wishes to participate in the program, but you haven't or can't identify a lead applicant, you may request to be listed as an interested party for lead applicants or other interested parties to contact. The FAA maintains a list of interested parties to help connect you with each other so that you can enter into agreements and form teams in order to meet the goals of a lead applicant's proposal. The interested parties list is publicly available at www.faaco.faa.gov. All application materials must be submitted through the program's application portal. The FAA will not be able to accept materials that aren't submitted through this portal. So, how do you get to the portal? In order to get access to the portal, you must be a lead applicant and send a Notice of Intent email to the FAA. This email must be sent to 9-AWA-UASIPP@FAA.gov. Be sure to send the email in the format described on the slide and provide answers to all of the questions. After you submit this email to the FAA, you'll receive instructions to access the portal via email. All instructions can be found in the Screening Information Request. If you're a private sector entity or a state, local, or tribal government that's interested in participating in the program, but not as a lead applicant, you can send an email to 9-AWA-UASIPP@FAA.gov and be added to the interested parties list. Again, be sure to send the email in this exact format, which is also available in the Screening Information Request. Okay, so once you're in the portal, your first step is identification. Complete the identification form and familiarize yourself with the functionality and layout of the portal. At this stage, you can submit questions, concerns, and requests for clarification in the portal. Keep in mind that answers submitted through the portal are available to all lead applicants. This ensures full process transparency, meaning everyone has access to the same information. The next step in the application process is concept overview. You have up to 35 days to complete this part of the application. That's 35 days from publication of the Federal Register Notice. Remember, all application deadlines are based on when the Federal Register Notice is published. The concept overview is an opportunity for the FAA to assess your eligibility for the program. For example, you'll have to attest to your ability as lead applicant to execute a memorandum of agreement within 5 days of selection. The MOA identifies the roles and responsibilities of both parties and describes the specific conditions of the agreement. You can review a draft MOA posted with the Screening Information Request. During this phase, you'll also submit up to 5 defined airspaces in which you plan to operate. These airspaces must be within the United States and within the jurisdiction of the lead applicant. The airspaces identified don't have to align with specific classes of airspace. Think of them more as clearly defined volumes or locations in the air. Additional airspaces can be added after selection, but you may submit up to 5 to get started. You'll also have to provide electronic shapefiles for these airspaces. The specific requirements about how to submit these shapefiles and in what format are described in the screening information request. ConOps means concept of operations. During this phase, you'll be asked to provide a description of the types of advanced drone operations that you plan to conduct and where you plan to conduct them. For example, beyond line of sight, night, or flights over people. Put these ideas in context. Explain the airspace, altitude, and operating environment that you plan to use for each specific type of activity. Explain how the airspace characteristics affect your ability to conduct operations safely. You'll also need to address the advanced technologies that you're considering using during your operations, things like detect and avoid solutions, command and control capabilities, ways to assess weather, human factors considerations, and other elements that may enable more complex operations. This is the time to bring it all together and explain how and why your proposal will push the boundaries of UAS operations or move the industry forward. This part of the application process focuses on community outreach, public interest, and economic considerations. Community outreach includes providing public notice and accepting comments from the communities in which you plan to operate or with whom you plan to collaborate. Be sure to have a plan for how to interact with your local community. Remember that this program is looking to balance local and national interests, so the lead applicants are expected to have plans for how to manage the program on a local level, including conflict resolution and transparency. The selectees will be expected to share data with the FAA and a description of mitigation measures to address concerns raised. The economic objectives of your proposal should explain the economic potential of the mission types planned. Focus on the economic impacts of a discrete activity, for instance, inspection of a large bridge, and describe that activity in terms of the number of flights, number of employees, or amount of time allocated. Privacy is also a consideration. Be sure to have privacy policies in place and be prepared to share those policies with the FAA and local communities. There's plenty of guidance material and best practices and example privacy policies that are currently employed throughout the government. Resources and information about privacy policies can be found in the screening information request. The next step in the process is identifying your team members and to describe your collective past performance with the UAS, relevant technologies, and/or the aviation industry. Your proposal should describe how your team's past experience enables your proposal to push the envelope. In addition to identifying your team members, you'll also want to describe roles and responsibilities, how you're going to get the job done, and why your team is a great partner for this program. The final step in the process is the infrastructure section. This is your opportunity to describe the physical and cyber security measures employed in your proposal. You'll also want to discuss the communication networks you plan to use to conduct operations and how you plan to use the spectrum securely, efficiently, and competitively. Include a description of any other infrastructure requirements relative to your proposal. This is the last phase of the application process, all of which must be complete within 57 days of publication of the Federal Register notice. Remember, all application information must be submitted through the application portal and must conform to the requirements described in the screening information request. DOT and FAA will start evaluating proposals as soon as they are completed. The presidential memo directs the selection of at least 5 proposals. However, we may decide to make additional selections throughout the course of the program. Applications go through a structured selection process, which is described in greater detail in the screening information request. Proposals will be reviewed by various teams within the FAA and DOT, as well as some of our federal security partners. Awards are communicated to lead applicants on a rolling basis. Proposals will be evaluated based on criteria provided in the screening information request. A strong application will describe especially thoughtful, innovative, or unique solutions or approaches to the technical, management, or operational problems or challenges facing UAS operations and integration today. It may describe an exceptional device, approach, or process that saves time or material or reduces risk associated with integrating UAS operations. And finally, a robust application will make clear that team members have strong knowledge or understanding of the technologies, requirements, or particulars of their proposal. Remember, each part of the application will be reviewed separately and on its own merits. Be sure that your application is comprehensive, substantiated with data, and conforms to the requirements documented in the screening information request. We've covered the application and selection processes, so let's take a quick look at an overall program schedule. Remember, this schedule will move quickly. First, all of the application information must be completed and submitted by the lead applicant through the application portal within 57 days of the Federal Register notice being published. All milestones are based on this publication date. Within 180 days, the FAA will look to have Memorandums of Agreement, or MOAs, signed with those applicants selected to participate in the program. Within 225 days, the FAA will strive to identify the operational requirements and the means to enable UAS operations proposed. Within 270 days, operations can be underway. The program is scheduled to run for 3 years. Throughout the course of the program, the FAA will collect and analyze data from the participants to inform UAS policy and rulemaking and to enable more complex operations that will move the whole UAS industry forward. We've covered a lot of material today. To help you get started, here are a few links and resources to guide you through the process. And I can't stress this enough. The Federal Register Notice and the Screening Information Request, or SIR, are your best friends for this process. They contain critical details about the program, expectations for applications, and the process and timeline for applying and participating. As always, you can visit our website at www.faa.gov/UAS for the most current information on this program and all of the FAA's initiatives regarding UAS activities. If you still have questions about the program and how to apply, you can contact our help desk at 9-AWA-UASIPP@FAA.gov, or you can call 844-FLY-MY-UA. Thank you for joining us today. The Department and the FAA are very excited about this new program. We look forward to proposals that promote technological innovation, create strong partnerships between private and public sectors, and push the boundaries of drone use as we embrace this new technology.